let's get into the Super Bowl. Let's talk
Yep.
about this game. And like we said last time we recorded, this one is going to be a doozy. This one we're going to break down who is going to win this game and why. Who's winning these position battles. We did this last year with Chiefs and Eagles, and it was kind of lopsided, honestly. If I remember correctly, it was very clearly Eagles had the better roster. Top to bottom, the Eagles were just a better roster last year, which led to them being the favorites in the game. But Chiefs obviously pulling out a great win and a great Super Bowl last year, 38-35, awesome football game. But obviously these two teams have played each other recently. Super Bowl 54, Chiefs win 31-20 over these same 49ers. I mean, very, very similar team. You're just substituting in Brock Purdy for Jimmy Garoppolo and Christian McCaffrey. So obviously some more talent there.
Yep.
And 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter from the Chiefs. That was a Kyle Shanahan special. And we'll get more into Kyle Shanahan when we get into the coaching part of this. But these teams are both different. I think the 49ers offense is significantly improved from where they were with that team. However, you could say the same thing for the Chiefs defense, significantly improved from where they were in that Super Bowl. So let's get into this. 49. Before we get into today's video, guys, I just want to give a special shout out to today's sponsors, starting with Gold Fine and Bowles, lawyers for the injured. Personal injury, workers' compensation, those are their two things, but any sort of legal advice, they're the people to call. Give them a phone call, 309-673-5144. Tell them we sent you, okay? And I'd also like to shout out SeatGeek for sponsoring today's video as well. Use promo code PLAYBOOKSPORTS on their website to get $20 off your first purchase of $30 or more. Let's get back to the video. First Super Bowl. Prior to the Packers game, though, and this may sway your guys' thoughts on this game a little bit. Prior to the Packers game in this postseason, Niners were 0-31. I believe it was 0-31 when trailing by 5 or more points going into the fourth quarter. That's insane. That is just insane. But then they just won. Obviously, they beat the Packers, and then they came from behind against the Lions. So the Lions had a 91.5% chance of victory at one point in that football game. And the Niners came back and won that game. So they're showing up, and then obviously you've got on the other side the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs. Hand up, I wrote them off, man. Like, we go watch our final power rankings. They were not there for me because they haven't looked impressive all year. However, we kept saying, when will this offense get going? When are they going to get rolling? Answer was obviously the postseason. Clearly, that was when they'll get going, which is just obnoxious. So, Sage, talk to us. What are your thoughts on this game? What are your thoughts on these two teams?
Yeah, obviously, the Chiefs just beat us 2 weeks ago and still recovering from that. But obviously, you have to have a lot of respect for that team that went into your house and held you to 10 points when you were just rolling, So the Chiefs, no matter how bad they are, we've always said it. If they have Patrick Mahomes, they have a chance. And even though that I think a lot of us believe that the 49ers have the better roster in a lot of different aspects. And we've seen them grow as a team and add throughout the year, the entire year. With their additions of Chase Young, with them going out in free agency and just building that defensive line over and over and over again. I think there's some clear points that they need to do to make sure Patrick Mahomes doesn't get the ball, because apparently it doesn't matter who's catching the ball from him. If it's the postseason, they all have fucking golden gloves.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating as all hell. But the biggest thing right here is this is a Brock Purdy legendary game right here. Is he going to be the guy to finally bring a Super Bowl back to San Francisco? I think he has what it takes. He every time he's been in the playoffs, which he's technically played in 3 games in the playoffs, and every time he's shown up. They've won those games. You can argue the only time that he hasn't really won those games when he was out against the Eagles.
Yeah, I can't really count that.
You can't even count it. No, it's going to be a great game. It's going to be an absolute wonderful game. I think it's going to be very defensive heavy.
Yes. Totally.
Super defensive heavy. I think both run games are going to get their fair share of work.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Both teams will try to not make a mistake. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be a defensive battle because, like you said, it's two very, very good defenses. I mean, the Niners, we already know their defense, right? We already know it's just got superstars at all 3 levels. But look at just the Chiefs' postseason run. Let's not even get into what they did the second half of the season, which was unbelievable. But they, against the number 1 offense in the NFL this year, held them to 7 points. Less than 200 passing yards to Josh Allen. Like, Josh Allen had some rushing yards and everything, but less than 200 passing yards. That's impressive. and then stumped the NFL MVP in Lamar Jackson. Like, just shut them down entirely.
Yep.
It's been super impressive to watch their defense and how they're playing. I thought Spagnuolo deserved at least some, talk about assistant coach of the year, in my opinion, but that's just me. Addison, what do you
Oh,
got? What do you
I
think?
mean, I would say about Spags, man. He's up there, maybe one of the best defensive coordinators of all time.
Yeah.
Just straight up what he did. I mean, he was the Giants DC when they played the Patriots an undefeated season and it shut them down. And now what he's doing in Kansas City, they were able to trade Tyreek, basically rip apart the offense besides Kelsey and Mahomes and build up a defense that Spags is able to do great things with. I mean, I think Kansas City's probably got the best secondary in football.
Yeah.
Snead and McDuffie and then Justin Reed as well, man. Like, he's an X factor. They move him all over the place. I'm shocked that the Chiefs are underdogs. I don't know what they did this postseason run and what San Fran's done this postseason run to make San Fran the favorite. Looking at the team, I get it. Joe Thuney being out, that's big for the Chiefs offensive line, but San Fran's here because of a couple choke jobs by Green Bay and Detroit. And I just don't see a scenario where if Kansas City gets up early, they're going to choke. They've been here and done that. If anything, it's San Fran's got to get up big and not choke, because Kansas City's been here and San Fran's fallen apart the last time they were here. I think it's going to be a good game, but man, I'm licking my chops at the Chiefs money line, but I'm sure a lot of the public is as well. So, maybe a little Vegas control here. See if San Fran wins, but I don't know, man. I'm looking at this game. I see Kansas City all day, just the way they've looked all postseason. And I understand the second half shutout from Baltimore's defense on Kansas City. That's fine when you're winning. You're taking time off the clock. Go look at that time of possession. They were still holding the ball, long drives that resulted in punts. You're all right with that. And that's something that San Fran did not do when they had the lead against Kansas City last time. Kansas City's not afraid to get to the run game. And San Fran, we'll see, they've been susceptible to the run this postseason. So it's going to be an interesting game, but I'm shocked Kansas City is the underdog here. Shocked.
Yeah. Last I checked, I think it was 1.5 San Francisco. Last I checked, which is surprising, especially all things considered. You look at both these teams and how they've looked these last several games of the playoffs, and the Chiefs have been unbelievable. There's really not many points in the games the Chiefs have played in where I'm like, ooh, I think the Chiefs are losing.
Yeah.
And I've never felt that when they were playing Buffalo, Miami, or Baltimore.
Obviously, you hate to say what ifs, but Green Bay missing a field goal, couple turnovers, fourth downs, going for it with Detroit. It's just Mahomes hasn't turned the ball over yet. And when he doesn't turn the ball over, the Chiefs do not lose. So it's like, you're not going to get this from all of a sudden unless somebody makes a massive play. That's what the Super Bowl is for, to make great plays. But still, it's just like, Kansas City's not choking at all. They look like they're well oiled. Nate, you said it. You get to the postseason, everybody takes the next step now. It's not even just Kelsey. It's the whole roster has taken another step. They know what they want, and it's a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. Colin, thoughts on these two teams?
Yeah, it's tough going forth because you boys have absolutely nailed it on the head. Addison, especially, I think you actually stole all my notes because you talked about the way these two teams have looked so far in this postseason, how they've gotten to the point they've gotten to, and the Chiefs having to go to Buffalo and then having to go to Baltimore after beating a Dolphin team as well. Let's not discredit the Dolphins in that game as well. But then you look at the Niners. Yes, they do have the 2 choke job wins, but ultimately they are come from behind wins. And guess what? Whenever you need somebody to make a play late, there's no better of a way to judge somebody's character and ability as a player than to see what happens when their back's against the wall and when the money needs to be made. And Brock Purdy has proved that. Addison, also, you talked about Joe Thuney. You got to talk about Charles Omenihu as well. That's going to miss this game. Yeah. That's a big loss for them. Anything you can do to get home to Purdy and make him off time and off rhythm, you got to do. And another angle I tried to look at in this game, because I've gone back and forth several times, right? You got Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid on one side that just went through the gauntlet of the AFC. Yeah. And then you have the Wonder Boy and Brock Purdy and the stacked roster of the San Francisco 49ers on the other side, who, let's say what it is, they did go through the NFC. Doesn't matter how pretty it looked, how much they won by, they won. They're the NFC champions in the Super Bowl. The angle I've tried to go at it for is, how do you beat Kansas City and you got to eliminate Travis Kelce, right? Who has the linebackers to do that? I thought it was Baltimore with Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith. So that was the angle I was trying to take. I was like, okay, you got Drake Greenlaw, you got Fred Warner. That's one of the best linebacker duos in the league. But then you looked at what just happened in AFC Championship weekend, and Baltimore has two of the best, probably the best linebacker duo in the league, I'd say. And they got whatever they wanted. So I've gone back and forth several times. Everything in my power makes me want to take the 49ers for some reason, and I can't tell you why. I think it's just because how many people are on the Chiefs, just because the Chiefs is an underdog. How do you pass that up? It's like, how do you get Nick Saban as a dog? How do you get Tom Brady as a dog? You got to take those guys every chance you can get. And Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid are definitely in that same conversation as those guys.
Oh, yeah.
How do you bet against Patrick Mahomes in general? And how do you bet against Andy Reid with Patrick Mahomes or Andy Reid by himself in general? So it's going to be a hell of a game. I'm so torn on who I'm A, rooting for, and B, betting on.
Yeah.
I'm so torn. But I think it's going to be a fantastic game. Injuries aside, I hope, let's just have a great game. People that start the game, let's finish the game, and let's do it. Let's have a slobber knocker.
Yeah.
You
Let's
know,
have a great team.
Colin, you're saying, how do you bet against Patrick Mahomes? Watch me. I'll do it. I will
think I'm going
absolutely
to
do
as
it.
well. I already have a bet placed on the Niners. Spoiler. But I'm kind of regretting it already.
Yeah.
What's that cash out looking like?
Yeah, I got some stuff to say about Kelsey and the linebackers, but when we break down positions, that's where I'll get more into it because I got some interesting stuff.
It seems like, I mean, it's a close spread, right? It's a 1.5 point spread. They're saying these two teams are damn near equal. So you can't really say like, oh, you're going with them. What are you thinking? That's crazy, and so on and so forth. Because
we're splitting hairs here. We're splitting hairs. Yeah.
Right. Which is why we're breaking down position by position. And there's a few of them where they're obvious, right? And we'll start at the one we just kind of discussed, quarterback. Mahomes versus Brock Purdy. I will say Mahomes, not the best year of his career, but it just doesn't matter, guys. It just doesn't matter because it's Patrick Mahomes. He's 28 years old. He's been a starter for 6 years. This will be his 4th Super Bowl appearance in those 6 years, and he's been to the AFC Championship game every single year. All he does is win. Yeah. It is frustrating because that's all he does. However, I don't think we can overlook Brock Purdy anymore. I was on the train at the beginning of this year. I didn't think he was going to do it again. I was like, there's no way he can recreate what he did. And he responded with 4,200 yards, 31 passing touchdowns, 11 interceptions. That was very, very good. Led the league in a lot of analytics, statistics, best passer rating. Great year. Honestly, if he wasn't drafted last, if he was not Mr. Irrelevant, we'd be saying, what a second season from this quarterback. He is going to be, like, if Kenny Pickett had this year, right, we'd be like, oh, hell yeah, Kenny. Like, you're going to be great going forward. You've got this. But since he was the last pick of the draft, it's like, I just don't, you don't want to believe it. You're like, oh, it's because of what he has. It's what he has. It's not him. And it's like, man, how many times? I mean, we said that about Mahomes for a while, right? Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, the best offensive coach, and Andy Reid, like they were cooking. Eric Bieniemy, and everyone's like, oh, but it's the things around him. Well, then he gets rid of Tyreek Hill, wins another Super Bowl. It's like, okay, just kidding. This guy's freaking amazing. I'm not obviously like Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes is on a tier of himself. We don't compare Patrick Mahomes to quarterbacks playing now. We compare him to Tom Brady because he's the only contemporary. He's the only guy that you can compare him to, truthfully. So I'm obviously giving the edge to Patrick Mahomes. I'd give him the edge over literally any quarterback in the history of the NFL right now.
Yep. Nate, you said it, the tier list thing. Mahomes, 1A by himself. I'd say Purdy's 2A right now with an opportunity to go to like 1C. You know what I mean? Join a club where he's in the one. If they get a Super Bowl win, like you cannot deny what Purdy's done. He's stepped up. He's got big time numbers. I mean, God, I say it every time a quarterback has decent numbers. I would obviously take Purdy's numbers as a Bears fans, clearly. But it's like, I mean, end of the day, Purdy, NFC Championship game, injury, Super Bowl now. And sure, the team around him, guess what? That's what he gets to play with. Oh, darn. You cannot knock the guy for the team around him. Great. The GM, good job, John Lynch. Good job, Shanahan, knowing what you're doing, having a team that's built to have success. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Just the Mahomes thing, 14 wins in the postseason, most by any quarterback under 30 by 2 games. Tom Brady has 12. Mahomes is 28. He is 28. That number is going to skyrocket. That potentially could be in the 20s, bruh. Under 30, that's just insanity. And I'm not going to talk much about it. It's Mahomes, a million for me at least. But you got to give Purdy credit. He has an opportunity to at least enter the conversation of the bottom tier elite guys. And like right now, I mean, if they win, better than Hurts immediately. And it's like he jumps him. And that's why I think you go 1C of a tier list. It's like that's tough to do in your first 2 years in the league, but Purdy's doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's surprising. We're comparing Patrick Mahomes to Tom Brady over his career, but Brock Purdy has the one that's most story-like to Tom Brady. He was drafted in the 7th round. Tom Brady was in the 6th. He started off. He had all the weapons, a great defense around him, stuff like that carried him to Super Bowls that he won earlier in his career, and then he ended up getting to the point where he was the guy. You know, Patrick Mahomes immediately started out his first year, and it looked like 07 Brady. Yeah. You know, there was never I need to build up to where I was. He sat behind Alex Smith for a year and exploded.
Yep. Oh, Sage, you're not wrong. Literally 07 Brady to a T, 50 touchdowns, both of them.
Yeah.
He had 50 touchdowns his first year and 50.
Absolutely wild. That's how he started.
It is crazy. My bad. I'm sorry. I think
No,
it's
you're good.
crazy that people hate on Purdy for being the last pick. How is this not the story that's a movie? You know what I
Right.
mean? This guy was the last
Right.
pick. It's just because the team around him's good, so it's easy to hate on him. If he was doing this with a bad
You're
franchise,
not
bad
like
team,
right now. It's like if you're
but-
not a quarterback who can drop back and throw it 75 yards in the air or scramble and outrun everybody, you're not good. You're
Do
just
you-
a product of
yeah.
your surroundings. It's like clearly you didn't watch football until like 2016 when these guys started coming out because
Yeah.
But
this
again,
quarterbacks
that's
have done.
never Brady. That was never Brady either. He never
No,
had
you're
that
right.
huge cannon, and he never had mobility.
No.
Dude just had his brain, and he
Yep.
had a decent arm.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
anything, he built
know?
his arm. You know what I mean? Over time, it
Exactly.
felt like he built it and it just never left eventually. But it's like, you're not wrong. That's not what he came in with, not this cannon arm. And that's not what Purdy came in with either. But guess what? He wins. And if
exactly.
you're saying Fran, there's not many guys in the league that you'd say give me over Purdy right now. And that's
And-
crazy to say.
When it comes to winning, obviously Patrick Mahomes right now this year is showing me he's more Brady-like because he is changing how he is winning.
Yep.
You know, how many times did we see Brady's offense change year to year? You know, all of a sudden they were having BenJarvus Green Ellis for 1 year running for 1,000 yards, and then the next year they were throwing it 4 times a game, 5 times a game to James White. Like it just from year to year, things were changing so constantly. And Patrick Mahomes now says, "Oh, I don't have Tyreek Hill. I'll throw it to Juju Smith-Schuster. Oh, he's not here anymore. I'll throw it to Rashee Rice. Oh, they're not here anymore. I'm running in the playoffs." Like he's finding different ways, and he's so obsessed with molding his game, not so much like Tom Brady, but making sure he does whatever he can to win, and that includes changing his game. It's only a matter of time before he takes this pay cut to where they can add more players because he just wants to win, just like Brady.
Yeah. We one left and we just got another one. That's all we did. We traded Brady for another one. Colin, thoughts on this, the quarterback matchup?
Yeah, clearly I'd have to be on drugs to say Brock Purdy over Patrick Mahomes. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Maybe some biased Niner fans wouldn't, or Iowa State fans wouldn't. But it's obviously Mahomes. What he's done through this point of his career is unheard of, and I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. Last year was a down year, Super Bowl champions. This year is really the down year. Super Bowl
they're in the
champs?
season.
Super Bowl
Yeah.
champs?
Another one?
Or at least runner-ups, AFC champions for sure. And
Dude,
so you just
in a
look at
row.
it, and you got to give credit, obviously, to the Niners with Brock Purdy and what they've been able to do with him, and what he's been able to do with what he's been given. Yes, he has great weapons, but who's doing all of it? Who's constructing the offense? Who's throwing the ball? Who's relaying to everybody? Who's checking at the line? Who's doing all this? It's all Brock Purdy. I don't really love the argument of, if he was a first-round pick, we wouldn't be discrediting him as much. I think we still would, just based
Probably.
off who he has around him. It's like, okay, he's got a good defense. He's got good receivers, this, that, and the third.
Like,
I
but
was-
would we be having this conversation if Trey Lance was in there right now?
About what?
Like if
Like-
Lance was good, you know what I mean? If he
Lance
put
is
up, if Lance came in, put up these numbers, people probably do just say Lance is good. He got drafted 3.
But people got to say Brock Purdy's good, right?
Yeah, no, and that, hey, that's
you'd
why
be
if you
surprised.
don't, if you don't, it's like at the end of the day, like you do just turn into a hater eventually. What does the guy got to
Well,
do?
If
know
you're
what I mean?
looking at the statistics of it, there's no way, like people will look at the statistics and be like, yeah, he had a good season, but look what he has around him. But if somebody like Josh Allen, right? Josh Allen puts up these numbers, it's like, yeah, look at him, guys, he's amazing. He put up these statistics. But Purdy, it's always like, yeah, he had a good season, but it's not Purdy, right? It's not Brock. It's got to be what's around him. But everyone else, it's, oh, it was them. Oh, it's Josh Allen. Oh, it was these guys. You know,
Okay,
and
I could see that argument, but at the same time, I guess I can't wrap my brain around people. Like I agree. Earlier this season, I was slightly discrediting Brock Purdy. Yeah, he's got the best running back in the league. He's got a top 3 defense. He's got a top 2 tight end, maybe 1 tight end, and he's got a top 3, wide receiver duo. But at the same time, it's like this kid's fucking good. If you don't think he's a top 10 quarterback in the league, then obviously you're wrong.
Yeah.
And if you don't think he had a top 2 statistical season this year, you're wrong as well. He is the reason why they're here. I don't think, obviously we saw Sam Darnold, but that was a lot of backups. Brock Purdy's Brock Purdy, and people are going to discredit him. I'm going to continue to discredit him as well. And he's going to keep proving all of us wrong. Last pick in the draft, first pick in the draft. See, I guess the reason my thing is being a last pick or a later round pick in general. Sure, you don't get as much credit up front for the success, but you also don't get as much blame, in my opinion.
right.
Whereas if you're a first round pick, well, you don't get it. You get more credit because you're like, okay, we hit in this draft. You're a home run. You're gonna be a franchise quarterback. But if you suck, oh my God, you're gone in a year and you're the biggest bust in history. So I guess
Less pressure.
you got to take the good with the bad. But you got to get to Mahomes. Long story short, Mahomes is the quarterback winner of this matchup.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy is going to be
100%.
there for a long time.
I don't know. I don't even know if the most stalwart San Francisco 49ers fan could look you in the face and say Brock Purdy's a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. If that is a real take people have, I'd love to talk to them and pick their brain, because that is insane. That is insane.
I would love
But,
to
yeah.
ask them about several other touchy subjects as well, just to kind of gauge their,
Yeah,
their whole
agreed.
portfolio.
But
But
the
yeah,
next
we'll
matchup
see,
we're
in
gonna get
two,
into-
we'll see in 2 years whenever Purdy's going to, be up for his extension.
Oh, they're gonna have to pay him. They're gonna pay him.
We'll find
but-
out a lot in that time.
Yeah, next position battle also, I think, is kind of a clear winner here. We're just going right into running backs. Isaiah Pacheco for the Chiefs versus Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers. I like how Pacheco runs. He runs so angry. It's so fun to watch him run. It looks like he's trying so hard to run so fast and that he's pissed off at the ground. I love that about him. Had a good season. He's a former 7th round pick, like last year. So he's a second-year guy. 14 games this year, 935 yards, 7 touchdowns, 4.6 yards a carry. Very, very solid season from Isaiah Pacheco in this offense. But the offensive player of the year officially voted on the other side. He was the offensive player of the year this year, 1,500 rushing yards and 14 rushing touchdowns to go along with 67 catches, 564 receiving yards, and 7 receiving touchdowns. 21 touchdowns, 2,000 all-purpose yards. I mean, my God.
And 5
What?
people in our fantasy league let you get him at 6.
Yeah, they did. God bless you guys. Thank you all so much. Won me the league. God dang. Gentlemen. Real gentlemen. Worth every dollar. He's the one where it's like running back should get paid. Look at the difference he makes for this team. But man, there's just no one like Christian McCaffrey. He's almost
a unicorn. He's a unicorn.
He does it all. He does it all. I mean, for me, obviously, edge is Christian McCaffrey. I'm a fan of Isaiah Pacheco. I like what he does. He is not the focal point of an offense. You could very easily argue that Christian McCaffrey is the most likely 49er to win Super Bowl MVP, because he could end up with 3 touchdowns. If they win, he might be the Super Bowl MVP. I think his odds would be as good, if not better, than Brock Purdy's to win it, and that's as a running back. So I think he could be, at the end of his career, could be considered a potential, like a Hall of Famer, especially when you look at running backs and the statistics now. Running backs nowadays will never put up the numbers they did in the 80s and 90s, because we just don't run the ball nearly as much. So his numbers should all be taken with that like grain of salt in a good way. Like, okay, he's doing all of this in a pass-happy league.
Yeah,
1,500 yards and 14 rushing touchdowns and all of his receiving numbers in a league that doesn't value the running back. I love Christian McCaffrey. He made me some money this year. So I'm going McCaffrey. Colin, what are your thoughts on this one?
Obviously, I'm going McCaffrey as well. Everything you've said, I think he's maybe the best skilled running back ever. I mean, obviously, prime Le'Veon Bell would like a word, but one of the best skilled running backs of all time, receiving, blocking, running, everything you need him to do. You can put him back there as a returner as well, and he's going to take it to the house. I do love Isaiah Pacheco. I had him in fantasy this year, had him in our fantasy playoffs this year, and I already have a bet on him to score the Super Bowl this year. So I love Isaiah Pacheco. I love the way he runs. I love that attitude, but it's got to be McCaffrey, man. It's got to be McCaffrey.
Agreed. Addison.
Yeah, I have some stuff written down for all these positional breakdowns, and for running backs, I just wrote quick and simple. Pacheco's damn good. He's going against the offensive player of the year. McCaffrey is what makes that offense go as much as Purdy does, but still McCaffrey's just so big for that offense. And Pacheco, though, he's huge for Kansas City. I mean, he's averaging 84 a game on the ground in the postseason so far. So he is key to their offense as well, and like what they want to do, controlling time, all that. But at the end of the day, it's just not a contest. CMC all day.
Yeah. Sage?
Yeah, I'm going to obviously roll with Christian McCaffrey, but I'm going to kind of lump in fullback in with running back right now.
Yeah.
Kyle Juszczyk is a unicorn in itself as well.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have 2 guys on in your backfield that can do basically anything. When your fullback is lining in a slot and he can catch a toe tap pass against a linebacker, which not many fullbacks can do, if any, because there's like 5 in the whole league.
Yeah.
Like that just brings it to a whole nother level. And that's another reason why Christian McCaffrey is so good, because you got this man in front of you, little muscle hamster with a head of steam, plowing through any guy, any linebacker, secondary person. That way Christian McCaffrey can just go up the sideline forever, you know? But on top of that, like they're both so versatile. They can both run the ball. They can both catch the ball. Like you don't know who's getting the ball, you know?
Yeah.
I could even see Juszczyk having a big game in this game just because McCaffrey's the focus.
Yeah.
He did the first time. He had a touchdown. I was gonna say, bet Juszczyk touchdown, man. He did it. He's 1-for-1 in the Super Bowl, but you're not wrong, Sage. Eyes are gonna be everywhere. All right, let's throw it to the All-Pro fullback, the guy that we trust with the ball in any situation as well. It's just he's not gonna get it as much as the other guys. That's a great point, man.
Yeah,
Well, I know we're going to talk about this already, but Christian McCaffrey can be in the slot, he can catch it out of the backfield, and he can run it. All those things can also be done by Kyle Juszczyk. All those things can also be done by Deebo Samuel. And then also, George Kittle is the best blocking tight end in the league, and he can go up the seam for 50.
He'll kill you.
And then Ayuk on the side. It's such a versatile offense that you never know where anyone's going.
And you have one of the most gifted play callers in NFL history dialing it up.
Exactly.
Like, oh my God. How?
They're dicks, man. They're dicks.
They are.
Yes, Sage, since you mentioned Juszczyk, I got to mention one of my favorite props for this game. I will be betting this on one of my slips. It is Juszczyk over 4.5 receiving yards is his line. I think he is guaranteed to catch a pass out of Spider 2Y. Just give him some bootleg backside or let him line up and go against the linebacker.
I'm taking my yards.
Yeah. I might alt that to 10 plus. I
might
don't know.
be 20.
20 plus 50.
50.
Okay, let's relax.
Okay.
Let's bring it back down to reality.
Yeah. All right. But
imagine though, like 3rd and 2 on his own 20, and he just busts like an 80-yard.
Gone.
That'd be plus 10. That'd be
electric.
Plus a million odds.
I'd be up. But speaking of receiving, I lumped together wide receivers and tight ends for this one because Kittle and Kelce obviously are both fantastic in their own right. Kelce, greatest receiver in postseason history. Passed Jerry Rice for all of his records, broke all of those records. Fantastic. But then we got to lump in, look at the whole Chiefs receiver room. I just listed Rashee Rice and MVS. I'm not counting Sky Moore. I'm not counting Kadarius Toney. Absolutely not. Sit on the bench. Don't do anything. So my 3 I've got going up against each other here are Rashee Rice, MVS, and Kelce versus Deebo, Ayuk, and Kittle. And even when I cherry pick it like that, right? Rashee Rice has had a really good rookie year, really solid rookie year, will be good going forward. It's not Deebo Samuel. He's not Brandon Ayuk, and then you got MVS, who was bad in the regular season, straight up bad, finally making some good catches, but he's not Deebo Samuel. He's not Brandon Ayuk. I'll give him the edge with Kelce over Kittle, absolutely. But based on talent alone here, and I love Kelce. Kelce's been fantastic, but George Kittle, 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. Ayuk, 1,300 yards, 7 touchdowns. And Deebo, 12 total touchdowns this year. From these 3 guys, you've got 25 touchdowns? Oh my God, come on. And McCaffrey had 21 himself. That is absurd. And McCaffrey you could put in this comparison because he does everything. The talent on the 49ers for skill position wise is unbelievable, especially at the top. And then you got someone like Juwan Jennings as a number 3 who's been really solid for them. Their depth is good. Their talent is undeniable. A wide receiver, tight end, I've got to go San Francisco with the edge here. I absolutely have to give them the edge. Addison?
Yes, if it was both combined, I think I am giving the edge to San Francisco with everything you said. Deebo and Ayuk, it's just not fair. Ayuk being the more traditional receiver and Deebo being a Swiss Army knife. And he's honestly a huge part of the offense too. I mean, every guy is on San Fran, and that's what's crazy. I'm just going to look at Rice and Kelce, though. 27 targets this postseason for Kelce, 25 for Rice. 9 is the next highest target, and it's Noah Gray, the backup tight end. So it's just those two, really, when it boils down to it. And end of the day, they're still making it work. I mean, Kelce, you said it, Nate. He does have the most touchdowns individually with Mahomes. He's 436 yards and 4 touchdowns away from having most yards ever in postseason, most touchdowns ever in postseason. I mean, he's got 1,800 yards, 19 touchdowns. Kittle's damn good. Probably the better overall guy right now in his career, obviously, just being able to block that factor. But Kelce just takes it up to another level. Like I said, he's lost a step physically. I think he has, but guess what? He's got it back right now, and he's going to whip it out every single time they're in the postseason. But overall, with them combined, it is the 3-headed monster in San Fran. It's just not fair. Everywhere you look, I mean, that guy could be considered an all-pro if he has the right year. So I'm just going to have to ride with San Fran, all 3. But Kelce and Rice. Rice has the 4th most receiving yards by a rookie in the postseason. So he's having a damn good postseason, and Kelce, but it's 2v3, and the 3 guys are all damn good.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and Kittle's a step or 2 behind Kelce if you want to say right now. It's Kittle's that close, and then the receivers, it's not even close.
Yeah, agreed. Colin, thoughts?
Not much to add to this list, guys. Obviously, love me some Rashee Rice. once again, like Isaiah Pacheco, had him on my team regular season fantasy, have him on my postseason fantasy.
Double dip.
But I also have George Kittle on the postseason lineup, and that's the team I have to take with who I have more confidence in, who I think is the better receiving core. It's got to be those Niners. You guys talked about it for everything you said. Debo, Ayuk alone against Rashee Rice, if you're just lining them up, receiver against receiving threats versus receiving threat for traditional wide receiver purposes. And then if you compare Kittle and Kelsey, those guys are just washes. What Kelsey has over Kittle in the receiving game, Kittle has that over Kelsey in the blocking game. So those two guys for me are interchangeable in every manner. Now, if you want to ask about who has more rapport and who has more of that connection and trust with their quarterback, obviously you got to go with Kelsey there. Him and Mahomes are definitely the duo more so than Purdy and Kittle. But just the array of weapons the Niners have, it's got to be the Niners for this positional battle. Much like last year, I think when we looked at the teams last year and the spread, very similar to last year's game, the team going against the Chiefs is going to win most of these positional battles. But will they win the game? Will they win the game?
To be seen.
I'm starting to fall into the same trap, taking all the opponents categories, but I'm going with the Niners here as well.
Sage, bring us home real quick.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Niners as well here. And obviously, it goes to inexperience of the wide receivers. Obviously, MVS, he's an experienced wide receiver, but in big moments, does he have that kind of experience? Not necessarily. Just with the catches, like Debo, Ayuk, all them, they've been in big games. MVS has had a few catches in big games, but I don't think that necessarily translates. Mm-hmm. As for Travis Kelce, obviously best receiving tight end probably of all time. Yeah. I do firmly believe that if George Kittle was not so damn good at blocking, he would challenge him for that. But since he's so good, you got to use it, And that's why I'm giving my edge to the 49ers. Debo does everything. George Kittle does everything. Ayuk is really good at what he does.
Yeah. Yeah, just insanely stacked at the skill position. It's unbelievable how they've built that team up. They're
absolutely wild.
Dangerous.
Addison, you got to be stoked. Kittle is definitely coming to the Bears.
I know he loves the Bears, man. He fucking loves the Bears.
Oh,
man.
Baby.
He's a huge
free agent after this year? No.
I don't know when his contract's up, but he was getting asked questions at media day about the Bears and his fandom growing up.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So,
and then you're so quick to discredit Kadarius Toney. You're not taking the plus 4,100 first touchdown scorer.
No, I am not. Yeah, if he catches the pass, I'll be shocked.
Is he active?
If he dresses, I'll be shocked.
Yeah, I don't even know. He may be a healthy scratch for this one. I mean, what a bummer.
What a shame.
Well, after what he said during the Ravens game where he went live and was talking shit.
True. I guess he was at practice this past week. I saw he was practicing, so who knows? But let's keep this rolling. Offensive lines. These are two of the best offensive lines in football. And you know what? You look at San Francisco's lineup of offensive linemen, and you would only know one of them, honestly, if you showed this list to any fan. Their line goes, Trent Williams, there's the one. Everyone knows Trent Williams. Best left tackle in football, in my opinion. You can argue other guys, but he's been amazing. And then from left guard to right tackle, it's Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, John Feliciano, and Colton McKivitz. Does not inspire confidence at all. It doesn't. But damn, they've been good, only allowing 28 sacks this season. And Purdy's not exactly the most mobile quarterback in the world, so you know that means the offensive line is actually holding up pretty well. On the other side, Chiefs, a really good group. I know Joe Thuney is out, so I don't have their current starting left guard on my paper here, but their starting offensive line. What'd you say?
I said I'm pulling it up. He's done well. It is Nick Allegretti.
Allegretti, okay.
Yeah.
So you've got, Donovan Smith, the Hold King at left tackle, Allegretti at left guard, Creed Humphrey, arguably the best center in football, one of them, Trey Smith at right guard, and Juwan Taylor at right tackle. Like, they have bigger name guys, and they've only allowed 27 sacks this season. So, both of these teams allowed less than 30 sacks. That's crazy. That is very, very good. If Joe Thuney was playing, I think this would be a blowout, personally. But since Joe Thuney's not playing, he's an all-pro that they're missing. Trent Williams, also an all-pro. When I think about how these teams are going to match up against each other, I like how the Chiefs offensive line matches up. And especially I like how the Chiefs defensive line matches up against the 49ers offensive line, because it's that interior that's weak. Chris Jones will have a great game against the interior of this line. I think from a pure talent standpoint wise, I'm giving the edge to the Chiefs. Fewer sacks allowed this season. They've been in this moment before. Trent Williams himself almost lift the 49ers above for me. But I am just going to go ahead and ride with the Chiefs in this one and give them the very slight edge in offensive line play for me. That's at least my thoughts on him. Sage, what are your thoughts?
You know, I'm actually going to go with the Niners again here, mostly because Brendel and Banks this year have been stalwarts.
Yeah.
Very good.
Banks has 0
Absolutely.
sacks allowed. 0
Yes,
sacks
sir.
allowed.
That's
Yeah.
exactly where I was getting at. This man is absolutely handling whoever's in front of him, you know? And with Amenahu coming down, I mean, I think they're only going to they get a boost by not going up against him, which kind of sucks. But when you're going up against lesser talent and you have good talent on that line, they're going to bully him. On top of that, with Tooney going down, that obviously brings the Chiefs stock down a bit. And Trent Williams, obviously, Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't say enough about him. But yeah, I mean, you said Brock Purdy's not mobile. What about those 60 rushing yards he had against the Lions?
Well, so right until this past game, everyone's like, "Oh, he can't do it," but then he takes off. It's like, where the hell has this been?
Right. But I will say, I think Mahomes works better with a bad line.
Yeah, he does.
But
He's
I do believe that the 49ers have a better line. And also with all the motions that they do with their line, I think that speaks volumes into like how well that they can confuse.
Super athletic.
Exactly. And on top of that, I had another point. It's coming to me. Oh, they're obviously, since they're healthier, they're gonna gel better. You know, when you have a new guy coming in, things get clunky.
Yeah.
And when you have a consistent line, and it's mostly for offensive line, it's almost exclusively for offensive line, things need to gel as well as possible. Everyone needs to know where each other is at all times. And when that happens, when you have those healthy guys, game after game after game, it just makes it so much easier for the quarterback and every skill position player.
Yeah, absolutely does. Absolutely does. I think this one's really close. Colin, thoughts?
Yeah, it's tough to make any other point than what you guys have made, but I have found an angle to what I have to say. I agree, Nate. If Joe Thuney's playing, it's a blowout in this matchup. You get Thuney, you get Creed Humphrey at center, and then you get Taylor at right tackle, who has been heavily penalized this season.
Mm-hmm.
But the angle I have to take is with the left guard going out and Joe Thuney. It's Donovan Smith, who we all know what he's been about in his career. Not very good. A lot of holds, a lot of penalties, a lot of sacks given up. And now you got a backup left guard coming in. Here's the angle I'm taking and why I'm putting the 49ers ahead. Who is protecting each quarterback's blind side? You got Trent Williams for the Niners at left tackle, and you got Donovan Smith with a backup left guard helping him on Mahomes' blind side. Therefore, I have to go with the Niners. And Sage, you mentioned as well, continuity between the line, knowing who's picking up who's twisting on what stunt, everything like that. I have to go with the Niners in this matchup.
Yeah, I like it.
But yes, Joe Thuney playing it is Chiefs, not even conversation.
I
I
agree.
think comparing these lines is hard because you have to compare who they're playing against.
Yep.
You know, like you almost have to compare offensive line versus defensive line.
Yeah.
And then once you do that, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I think that makes the Niners case even stronger.
It absolutely makes the
Actually,
Niners case. It makes it a blowout.
That's what you think. That's what you think. Eric Armstead, no sacks this postseason. Chase Young, no sacks this postseason.
That is true.
I get they played one less game because of the bye, but still, where them impacts at? Chase Young though played well against
True.
the run.
They were
Anyway,
playing-
I'm going Chiefs line. And obviously I'm taking a little bit maybe more into the consideration because I'm thinking if the rush from San Francisco is getting home to Mahomes, he'll be able to get out of the pocket, extend plays, maybe get rid of the ball quickly. And Mahomes will have been there and done that. And I just look about it from the other way. Spags is going to send more than just the defensive line. This guy blitzes with his nickel corner quite often. He sends exotic blitzes. So is it just the D line that's getting home? Or is it more than that as well? And I get, obviously, it's taken just a little more than the O-line and D-line, but I'm giving it to Kansas City overall just because I think San Francisco is going to have a lot more to the plate than just the D-line. End of the day, Chris Jones playing like a madman. I mean, he's worth that bag that he sat out for, completely worth it. Shout out Chris Jones because that doesn't often work, and it did for him. I got to say, shout out the Chiefs tackles, though. Smith and Taylor both playing better this postseason. Mahomes only been sacked twice. And I think that's just a thing as well. It's Mahomes knows, eyes in the back of his head. Got to get the ball out quick if there's any pressure. He's dealt with it all year. You know what I mean? Line hasn't been great all year. There's pressure there. So he's had to go through this. And now it's finally to the point, okay, I'm going to get rid of the ball quick. 2 sacks all postseason. I like that. And I think the lack of pressure from San Fran so far, I'm just going to give the edge to Kansas City. I think they're going to hold it down in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I guess the flaw in my argument about blind side and left side of the line is which way is Mahomes rolling it? Which way is Mahomes going to roll out?
True.
He's going to roll away from that pressure on that left side. So
Go roll behind the right side of the line.
it's a close matchup. It's close.
It is.
It might be
Damn
the
close.
closest
End of
one
the
we've
day,
had so
damn
far.
close. Damn
Now,
close.
Addison, you made it seem like you're kind of big on the Chiefs defensive line here. Chiefs defensive line in this game, we've got George Karlaftis, Chris Jones, Mike Dana were really the three I mentioned because Omenahu and Derek Nottie are both out for this game. Obviously, we've talked about Omenahu with 7 sacks this year. Now that was his career high. Now done for the year. Nottie's kind of that run stuffing DT. And then you look at the San Francisco defensive line, and these names are sickening. This is an all-star cast.
They are.
Chase Young, Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, and Nick Bosa. I mean, we're not even talking about their most 2020 first-round pick, Javon Kinlaw, in this. Like, he's not even being mentioned because they don't need him because they've got 4 monsters on their defensive line. Tell us about it, Addison. What are your thoughts on this one?
So defensive line, Kansas City, I think, racked up 57 sacks. And again, that just comes in with the Spags blitzes as well, which I think bumps up the defensive line a little bit.
Absolutely.
But San Fran, though, I mean, you listed them. I mean, that is 4 dominant guys. I will say Chase Young, since he's came over, maybe a little lackluster. Surprising just because there's so much talent surrounding him on that defensive line. It's like, where is it at, Chase Young? I mean, they have 2 sacks in the postseason, the Niners do, and it's Nick Bosa, excuse me. So unless Nick Bosa comes out and goes crazy, someone else is going to have to step up. So I'm giving the line to the Chiefs, baby. And I get it. Again, I'm pulling Spags out as my ultimate cheat code, but it just works because he does more with his blitzes, with his pressures, Justin Reed moving him all over the place. And that impacts the defensive line because it's not just them rushing. So it's going to be defensive line plus pressure. I'm giving it to Kansas City just because they also have the numbers. I get they played that extra game, but they're getting home. Karlaftis is having an elite year. I'm expecting a big game from him in the Super Bowl. Man, I saw some wicked questions he got during Super Bowl weekend, the media week, and he answered them really well, just breaking down the game. Really cool to see players doing that. But I'm going Kansas City defensive line, a little surprising, but just where's the production from anybody that's not named Nick Bosa? And end of the day, they've been giving up the run defensively as well, San Fran. And I just, where's it at? I'm looking at it the postseason so far, and it hasn't been there. And that's what I've been saying a lot this video, but it's just where I'm lying.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and taking into account like the defense coordinator into this one, which I guess we could have incorporated when doing defenses.
Yeah, Steve Wilkes in San Fran, who, hey, great guy, but hey, Kansas City's defense is wearing in Spags We Trust shirts. They love this guy. Spags loves all those players. George actually said that in that video. Yeah, he loves players, star player or practice squad guy, and they buy in. Players love that when coaches set them up for success, and there's a bond there, and Kansas City has that with Spags for sure.
Totally agree. I am going to go with San Fran, and this one's strictly on name value and talent wise. Like, Chase Young has been disappointing to this point in his career. Obviously, he had his best year as a rookie. He did have 7.5 sacks overall this year. Nick Bosa is fantastic. Armstead and Hargrave are both really good. Without Tooney playing, those 2 guys need to step up and play a really good game. Because I will say, San Francisco, the offensive line San Francisco has played has been good. Green Bay's offensive line, top 10 in the NFL. Detroit, maybe the best offensive line in the NFL. And then like the Chiefs defensive line going up against Miami's beat up offensive line. And the Bills do have a good offensive line, I will say. And then going up against the Ravens offensive line too, but they did have that extra game. So I think it's closer than people would tell you. I really do. But I am going to go with San Francisco strictly on the talent there, 5 deep. They can get home with rushing those 4. If I'm the Niners, I'm putting Nick Bosa across from Donovan Smith. I'm not moving him. I'm not putting him across from Juwan Taylor. Chase Young, occupy Juwan Taylor for me. Nick Bosa, go do what you do, and don't let Mahomes drop back. Make him roll out right every time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's just turn into the rollout right show, but then you can contain off that. You know what I mean? You can
play off of that.
Okay, we're going to
Nick Bosa will beat Donovan Smith every rep.
Yeah,
in my opinion. So I'm going with San Francisco. Colin, thoughts on this one?
Oh, it's tough because you both made great points. Obviously, coming into this, I was leaning San Francisco as well. Nate, you mentioned name value, but also just overall talent. Yes, their name value is what it is because of what they've proven talent-wise. Yes, Chase Young hasn't proven it in a couple of seasons now, but he's been injured for a little bit of that, and he's running out of excuses for his future contract extension that he should be playing for and getting here soon.
This offseason.
It's so tough though, because when you mention who they're going up against, like Sage said, you kind of have to think about who they're going up against in this game. And for some reason, all week in the back of my mind, I'm just picturing that Bucks Chiefs Super Bowl where Mahomes is just running for his life because his O-line can't hold up at all. And that's what my mind goes to in this game. I think San Francisco, I'm giving the edge to them with their defensive line and what I think they'll be able to do, because if they don't win up front, they ain't going to be winning in the backside. So they have to show up. They have to win up front. Best way to stop Mahomes in this offense from churning the clock and getting these long play drives, long timed drives, is stopping the run and eliminating Pacheco. Like Addison mentioned, Niners haven't been a great rush defense in this postseason. Can they step up and do it here in the Super Bowl? I'm leaning Niners defensive line here as well.
Okay. Sage, bring us home.
Damn, I will say, Addison, you almost convinced me.
It was close. I would say it was close.
Yeah. You did a good
Yeah.
job.
That Spags pitch was good because I do love me some Spags. But obviously with the 49ers, they just have so much name value, so much talent on that side of the ball. And that's kind of like their thing. Like I remember when they like got Chase Young, there was all these memes about like fucking Thanos with the gauntlet. And they're like, oh, they finally got the last piece.
Mhm.
Like that is what they pride themselves on, is this defensive line.
Yeah.
And to think that anyone in the league has a better defensive line is kind of laughable. But when you think about the brains behind it, obviously Spags gives them a good chance. But they are going up against, Trey Smith, who had 3 holding penalties against the Ravens. 30 yards were the penalties right there. On top of that, they're going up against a backup guard. They're going up against all these things where they have the leverage to take control of this game. So that's why I'm going with Chase Young, Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa. Give me all of them. I think Nick Bosa is going to I think he's going to have a game.
And something that's very memeable is who is Nick Bosa facing in this game?
True.
I almost said,
I'll
Yeah.
just leave it at that. If you
Yeah.
know, you know.
Preach. Ain't that
you
true?
know.
If you know, you know.
He's gonna get his numbers. We'll go quickly through these last 2 defensive matchups before we get into head coach and final picks. We've got the linebacking crew going up against each other. Nick Bolton, Willie Gay, Drew Tranquil for Kansas City up against Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner. I'm going to save myself some time. It's Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner for me. They are, I think this season I would have had them as the second best linebacking duo in the entire NFL behind Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. That's just it for me. Fred Warner is unbelievable. I love watching him play. I was trying, like when they played the Ravens, I was specifically watching him and what you want in a middle linebacker. A lot of middle linebackers play with both legs about shoulder width and like in a seated position. He plays with a foot forward, like he's in a sprinter stance almost, ready to go as soon as the ball's hiked. And then he takes off to exactly where he needs to be. His instincts for the game are second to none. He's the best, arguably the best middle linebacker in football. Again, there is debate there between him and maybe Roquan Smith and some others. But I really like Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner. They have been fantastic together. Fred Warner, what a great pick in the 3rd round that he was several years ago, man. Crazy good pick.
Absolutely.
Addison, thoughts?
They developed him as well, like out of a nickel. So he wasn't even as big as he was, but he had some size. But Fred, just a stat about him, first guy since 2000 with 125 tackles, 4 picks, 4 forced fumbles. Just shows the year he had. And Nate, you said it, it's San Fran all day. The Chiefs have a good linebacking core. You cannot knock them. Nick Bolton, he's made plays in the Super Bowl, but it's just San Fran's. Wow, you look at him. Dre Greenlaw is the worst of the 2. Okay, damn, that's pretty good. But Fred Warner alone just takes the cake for San Fran. But then you add Dre Greenlaw, and he might even be better than all of Kansas City's linebackers as well. So you could say they have 1-2 on this list. If not, it's like 1-3. So give me San Fran. I will say this, just a quick one. With Travis Kelce, if the 49ers play a lot of zone, he just breaks off plays. He does his own thing. He's got freedom within the offense, and him and Mahomes have that connection. It's going to be interesting to see if they play more man on Travis Kelce and other guys, because that sort of hurt them against the Lions. They were lucky Josh Reynolds had a couple of big drops late in the game, and that was against man coverage. So they're getting sort of picked apart both ways, and if they're playing a lot of zone, I can see Kelce finding weak spots. I'm still going to give the edge to San Francisco, because it's just Fred Warner, Drake Greenlaw, and then that's the end of the conversation.
Yeah. Colin.
Yeah, got to give some love to Nick Bolton and those Chiefs linebackers. One of the smartest things we've said on this show was last year we gave out the X factor of Nick Bolton, and he had that fumble return for a touchdown.
Huge.
Fantastic play and player. But when you're talking about the whole core as a unit, you have to go with San Francisco. Addison, you mentioned it. They might have the 2 best, if not 1 and 3 on this list. Fred Warner, as a Cowboy fan, there's nothing I would love more to see that guy in some blue and silver, but we'll never see it. And he is just so damn good. I think he is the best, even with the year Roquan Smith's having and the bag he's going to get, or he already got. Fred Warner, oh my God, that guy is just unbelievable.
Yeah, agreed.
There's one guy off the Niner defense I would poach, it'd be Fred Warner, even over Nick Bosa. I think he's that good.
I think that's reasonable. I mean, he's got the green dot. He's calling the plays defensively. He does everything for them. He's so damn good at it.
Yeah.
Sage, linebackers.
Yeah, obviously, if there's one linebacker you want to play a chess match against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, it's going to be Fred Warner on the field. And I think that's what it comes down to more than just physical attributes, is that Fred Warner can read that offense. No one's watched more film than that man on the entire field, and I can guarantee it. That man has been studying this religiously. So when you're looking at all the linebackers on both sides of each team, I gotta go with the Niners just for him specifically. And Dre Greenlaw, it's hard to say. He brings out the physicality. Like as soon as Fred Warner's there, he's cleaning it up.
Yeah,
right there. You know, Nick Bolton, obviously X factor last year, had best play of his career, and maybe he's trying to catch lightning in a bottle twice in the biggest game. I could see it, but I'm not banking on it.
Yeah, agreed. Niners defense is so freaking stacked. However, a part of the Chiefs defense that is also very stacked is that secondary, corners and safeties. Chiefs secondary, you got L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie, maybe the best cornerback tandem in the NFL this season. And then at safety, you've got Justin Reed and Mike Edwards. Justin Reed, like we've said earlier, he is a chess piece defensive back. Does everything. Can do it all, will do it all.
Yep.
He's awesome. In San Francisco's defensive backs, you've got Charvarius Ward, former Chief, come out talking some smack this week. Probably a mistake. Shouldn't do that. I love this guy. The guy's name, I don't even know if he's any good. Diamador Lenore. What a fun name to say. I mean, he gets points for the name alone. And then you got Jair Brown, J-I-apostrophe-A-Y-I-R Brown. Great name. And then Tayshaun Gibson, former Detroit Lion, was complaining about being woken up early, saying, never seen so many sleepy faces. Guys, the fire alarm went off at 6 a.m. Like, let's not, come on. It wasn't 2:30 in the morning or anything. It was 6 a.m. You're going to be fine. But I think the edge in this one is very clearly for me, Kansas City. L'Jarius Sneed didn't allow a single touchdown until this past week against the Ravens. That was the first receiving touchdown he'd allowed all season. Or no, maybe it was the Bills.
I think it was the divisional. I think it was
Bills
divisional,
game.
but still,
Was
it's
the
the
first receiving
playoffs.
touchdown caught on him. That's insane.
Guy didn't
McDuffie-
make all pro either. And McDuffie did, which, hey, rightfully so, but they have 2 all pro corners. Let's just say it how it is. And
Yeah,
Justin Reed's
dude.
that X factor. Hufanga, man, that's a massive piece missing
Huge
for San
loss.
Fran. Obviously, they've been missing him for a while, but that's an all pro of his own. You know what I mean? On San Fran's side, that bolsters up that secondary that they're going to be missing. And I think that makes it Chiefs easy. I wrote Chiefs easily LOL on this because it's just, man, it is the San Fran's pass defense has been weak all year. You could complain a little bit about the rush, but end of the day, corners as well. And that's not what the Chiefs are. They send blitz and those corners are able to cover the whole time. It's DBs, but for the Chiefs by a long shot.
Yeah, agreed. Colin.
Yeah, you talk about it. I love Tayshaun Gibson a lot, but the one matchup that I think they bring it home is McDuffie against Diamador Lenore, who was my X factor in that Week 5 Cowboys-Niners game this year. Diamador Lenore. Great name, but it's got to be the Chiefs here. As you mentioned it, 2 basically all-pro corners, whether they want to award them it or not. They're fantastic. I gave the Niners everything, but I'm giving the Chiefs defensive backs and safeties because they earn it. And Spagnuolo knows exactly what to do with that unit as well.
Agreed. Sage, bring us home.
All right, yeah, it's hard to go against the Chiefs right here. Obviously, 2 all-pro corners. No other team in the league has that. But when you bring up one thing that's changed in the NFL the past few years, it's going to be that nickel position. And whoever has that nickel position, if you look at the top 4 teams that made it to the championship games this year, all 4 of those teams, aside from the Niners, have a solid nickel position. Kyle Hamilton, Brian Branch, and Reed. You know, all those guys can play inside, play that slot, and make sure that they have someone fast enough to react to anything that's going to happen near that line of scrimmage. So that even gives me more of an X factor to go with the Chiefs right here.
Yeah, agreed. Chiefs secondary has been unbelievable all
It's the
season
best
long.
secondary in football.
Yeah.
And then the opposite side of that is Mahomes. They're dicks.
Yeah. And then last matchup for this one is obviously coaching, right? We've got Andy Reid versus Kyle Shanahan. And I included the defensive coordinators in this too, because I think they're important. I think they're important to include in this. Last year, I just did Andy Reid versus Nick Sirianni, and Andy Reid obviously blew him out of the water. Kyle Shanahan can put up a fight. One of the best play calling coaches in the NFL. Andy Reid, though, is looking for his 3rd trophy. All of them would be with the Chiefs. He was part of a staff that won in '96, but as a head coach, currently has 6 straight AFC championship games. Shanahan trying to find his first. Shanahan as an OC in Atlanta, we all know how that went, 28-3. Shanahan as head coach for San Francisco, they were up 21-10 in the fourth quarter and
8
choked it
minutes
away.
left. Yeah.
Choked it away. That's 2 Super Bowl appearances for Kyle Shanahan that he has had a good lead that he has lost. And then I'm just going to include Steve Spagnuolo. We've talked about him a ton today. I think he's the best defensive coordinator in football this year. And I just think he's better off. I like what Steve Wilkes has done. I appreciate the adjustments he made in the second half of the NFC Championship game. Really slowed down Detroit. But I simply have to go with Spagnuolo in that spot against Wilkes. And then also a fun fact, you guys know the Niners don't have an offensive coordinator? Like, don't have one, straight up. Didn't bother hiring one. There's not one that exists. It's just Kyle Shanahan. Fun fact for you. And then I'm not going to talk about Matt Nagy, obviously one of the greatest offensive coordinators of all time.
Genius. I mean, he is a genius.
Yeah, genius. Last year, I'm parlaying this into my pick. Last year against the Eagles, everything was for the Eagles except for quarterback and head coach. And I specifically said, they've got Andy Reid, they've got Patrick Mahomes, that's enough for me. Welcome back. History repeats itself 1 year later. It's essentially a pick'em game. Chiefs have Andy Reid, Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. I got the Chiefs winning this game, boys. I got the Chiefs winning this game 23-21. Low scoring. 2 great defenses duking it out. I'm going with a low scoring Chiefs victory, obviously to cover the spread as well. All right, Addison, thoughts on coaching battle and your pick?
You bring up Andy Reid, and I think this game is huge for his legacy. I think it's got to put him in greatest coach of all time conversation just because of what he did in Philly. End of the day, did not win a Super Bowl, but 4 straight NFC championships over there and at least made a Super Bowl. Now he's done 6 straight with Kansas City and has won 3, potentially 4. I mean, it just gets to the point where there's not much of a competition when it's really the coaches. Kyle Shanahan trying to get over that hump, trying to get over the scar tissue you got from the past mistakes. Andy Reid's been here, done that. And then you go defensive coordinators. Steve Wilkes, he's got a decent defense in San Fran, but Spags has got the boys in Kansas City playing different. And then you look at San Fran, those teams, when they played the first time, San Fran probably had better pieces everywhere on that defense. And Mahomes wasn't what he is now, and he still won. Now it's evolved Mahomes against maybe a worse defense with a worse play caller in Wilkes. Just give me Andy Reid, give me that staff, Spags, give me Matt Nagy dialing up a crazy reverse for a touchdown, Sky Moore touchdown. But give me the Chiefs to win the game 27-24, last second field goal, man. It's going to be a sweet one. The basic score there, 27-24, but give me a last second field goal. Chiefs have ball last, but basically been in control all game. That's my game plan, is they're going to be control all game. Just get ball last though, field goal to win. And just, yeah, it's the Chiefs staff, Chiefs W.
Yeah, I like it. Colin, final thoughts.
So bringing out the coaches, as you mentioned, you give the offensive play caller to Reid, I would still over Shanahan, just from what we've seen experience-wise. Yes, Shanahan is brilliant. There's no questioning that. I think he's one of the top 3 most brilliant offensive minds in the league, without question. But I'm giving it to Andy Reid. He's been there. He's done that. He's won it. And you look at the defensive side, you got to give it to Spagnuolo. I mean, a brilliant mind head coach, or a decent head coach, but brilliant mind defensive coordinator. And then the best thing the Giants ever did were getting rid of him. Thank you, Giants, from a Cowboy fan. Appreciate you. But for a final score and a winner's prediction, everything I want to do is pick the Niners. I've already placed an okay-sized wager on the Niners. But I think back to that Broncos-Panthers Super Bowl. I think back to that Giants-Patriots Super Bowl. And if you give me the better coach with the better quarterback and the better defense, who am I taking in this game? And it's got to be the Kansas City Chiefs. They have the better head coach. They have the better quarterback, and their defense has been playing much better than the Niners have, not only the last couple of weeks, but the entire season. Also, last thing I'll say on this, you look at the 2 best defenses the Niners have played this season. 19 points against Baltimore in San Francisco, 17 points in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Here comes Kansas City with a top 3 defense, top 2 defense in the league. Give me the Chiefs in a low-scoring game, much like you guys. Give me the Chiefs 20-16 Chiefs. 2016, low scoring. Let's have a game.
Okay, I like that. Sage, final thoughts, coaching battle, your pick.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any play caller that we're going to compare to Andy Reid, it's Kyle Shanahan. But even then, Andy Reid has the rings. Kyle Shanahan does not. And that's what it comes down to right now. Andy Reid is way more accomplished, has way more years, has way more knowledge. Even though they hired an offensive coordinator, I don't know what Matt Nagy does. I'm not gonna lie.
He just pats Mahomes on the back. He just pats him on the back.
Moral
Says,
support,
good job.
moral
Good
support.
He
job.
rocks this shit out of a visor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he does.
he's the first guy dishing out the high fives off the bench.
There's no way he's calling the plays. They would have way more curls.
Oh yeah,
if he was
that's all
calling
they run, hitches all day.
Yeah, they would have way more curls. But on the defensive side of the ball, we've already talked about Spagnuolo. Dude is an absolute defensive genius. Can't head coach, defensive genius. You know.
Yeah.
No, he
he
can't
was
coach.
Buns low
He
key
can't
as a
coach.
Rams coach, right? I
Yeah,
think he was Buns.
Rams. I think he maybe dabbled with the
Dolphins was
Giants
an
for a year.
intern. Was he a Dolphins intern?
He might have been a Dolphins intern. That sounds familiar.
Also, looking back on the trivia, Dolphins or Miami has hosted 11 times. New Orleans is 10.
Ah, okay, all right.
I looked that up a long time ago, and I don't know what just brought that back to my mind.
But
Got
on
it.
top, when you looking back to when a head coach goes up against another head coach and it's a rematch,
Mhm.
the guy who won the first time is 3-0 against the guy that won against the guy that they're playing.
That's a good
Just
stat.
saying that.
When you look into history,
Reed has this bye history where he's 28-3 off of bye when the other team is also off bye 3-3.
Well,
Well,
so then 25-0 when it's just a bye
so
himself.
I don't know. That's the thing. I saw that. I don't know if it is its own, you know what I mean, category. If like they have the bye, that if it does mean 25-0 and he just has bye by himself, that's absurd. That is
That's-
absurd. Yeah. And one thing though, Kyle Shanahan, players have to learn and go through mistakes. So don't coaches as well.
Mhm.
Obviously the Falcons, why don't you run the ball more? When you look back at that Chiefs 49ers first one, on that last possession they had, started with a 5-yard run, pass, punt. So it's just when they have the lead in a scenario, does he get away from what has built this team around? It's the run game. It gets
Yeah.
everything going. And did he have to go through a couple lumps? We'll see if they get into position. We'll see what
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan does.
I'll say Kyle Shanahan needs to run the rock right here. If they know what's good for them, they got to run the ball because obviously learn from Baltimore. If you can do anything with our game, learn from us.
Learn.
Please
Run it.
take down the Wicked Witch because
Yep.
I don't want to see it again.
I guess one angle we haven't thought about, I know we're really up against it time-wise, but I'd be remiss not to mention it, would be Jimmy Garoppolo missed a throw in the fourth quarter of that game. Is
Yeah.
Brock Purdy going to miss that throw? If it comes down to it, obviously. A lot of if or buts, but
Sage, I think we all cut you off. Did you give a score?
Yeah, what's your pick?
My pick, I'm going San Francisco 49ers 27, Chiefs 17.
Oh, a 10-point victory. Mama. Okay. Bold.
now
Oh.
we got to ask a few questions. How many burger joints are on the strip? Because
Right.
old Coach Reed might be hunting. And
Yeah,
also
right.
players that are not only there playing in the game, but are there enjoying the festivities, fans. The game's in Las Vegas. Let's not have any headlines on Monday morning about something that happens on Monday morning.
Please.
Let's be responsible.
Yep.
As a Ravens fan, I can't take any more headlines. I'm heartbroken right now over this A Flowers news.
As a
Yeah,
Cowboy
that's-
fan, we already have enough fucking headlines. So let's not do any more headlines.
Yeah, it was kind of ironic. I think the closest comp for Zay Flowers last season, draft season, like everyone's like, he'd have to work to be this guy, but he could be this guy, was Tyreek Hill. And someone quote tweeted that at the time and said, as long as he doesn't have the off the field stuff. And here we are. It's like, oh no, not him too. Short
Shit.
King, what are we doing? What are we doing? Come on.
I
But
gotta feel somehow.
that's right. That is all we've got for you guys on this Super Bowl breakdown. It's going to be a great football game. Cannot wait to watch it. Also want to give everybody a shout out, all the new subscribers we've been getting recently. Thank you guys for coming around. Let us know what more you want to see. There will be more draft stuff. There will be, I mean, we've got a ton of off-season stuff going. If you haven't already, go check out the free agent video that was posted a couple of days ago. That one's doing real well. Can't thank you guys enough for all the support. And we will see you guys in the next one.
Right on.
Peace.